Thank you again, everyone, for coming. And I'm going to stop talking now and hand over to Mikey May for his first set. Let me just give a quick introduction to Mikey, to those who are not familiar with their work. Mikey is a queer trans man based in Birmingham, a teacher, a poet, a linguist. His work covers across all disciplines, focusing on language, violence, and resistance. So he was the winner of the Stonewalled Young Writers Competition in 2016 and a member of the winning team at Unislam in 2018. Their work has been featured by the Poetry Translation Centre, Marius at Campaguitas, Full House Lit Mag, yay, and in the anthology At Home in Our City. He self-publishes solo and collaborative poetry zines about sex, etymology, and Taylor Swift. And I'm delighted to hand over to Mikey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm very excited, very nervous. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Full House and in particular to JP, who's just been amazing throughout this process. Like it's been really, really wonderful. So yeah, I've got two little sets tonight, and I was wondering how best to kind of split the two up. And I've decided with the first one, I'm going to more tell a bit of the narrative of Would You Like to Hold, as it were, and then in my second set, I'm gonna be a bit more performancey, get a bit weird with it. So yeah, I'm gonna start. I'll give some content warnings first. These are sort of general ones for this particular mini set. To dysphoria, mentions of death, and some body horror. I'm going to start off with the titular piece, which is what opens the chapbook. Would you like to hold? Would you like to hold the line for 45 minutes at a time? Would you like to hold your breath when the elevator music hitches? Would you like to hold your tongue when the overworked woman can tell you nothing? Would you like to hold your balance on the tightrope of your dignity? Would you like to hold your sister's hand as you sob inconsolably? Would you like to hold your girlfriend's waist on days your bed has no escape? Would you like to hold your temper when all you can do is wait? Thank you. So Would You Like to Hold is a story of waiting. It's about having your life put on hold in many, many different ways, which is something we all kind of were going through in the time I was writing these poems. And as such, this next poem is titled Lockdown 1, and its sort of setting is the Birmingham suburb of Selly Oak, which some of you know very well, is a suburb that is mostly populated by students. So during the time of the first lockdown, it was a suburb that was mostly populated by ghosts. So yeah, this is Lockdown 1. A house across the street from me has been beeping incessantly for 48 hours as of now. I believe I may be going slowly insane. I assume the tenants are long gone, escaped pandemic to some childhood nest. The only faces left on Selly streets are poor and or queer. Our only homes are those we carved out here with yellowed teeth and bitten nails. I do not like my neighbours. They yell and play bad music, and the few times we have spoken, they assumed the worst of me. I'm aware I am a hypocrite for all my claims of community. I miss piling on your bed and eating edamame beans. I miss threesomes. I miss wishing that you die a bit more slowly. I'm still spitting blood every morning. I still do not know what is wrong with me. Extractor fan drowns out the beeping as I practice PM speeches in the bathroom mirror, clicking my jaw back and forth. In these trying times, thank you. So my chapbook is split into 3 sections, which I think I'm going to talk about a bit later in the Q&A section. This next poem is from the 9th section, where we get a bit more weird and wonderful. This piece is called Cutlet. In the dream, I am a piece of meat, begging the butchers to slice me nicely. I have made a PowerPoint presentation to prove that I am worthy. The panel blurs and chatters. My oldest friend swaps seats with my year 13 French teacher. Everyone is smiling, and no one tells me anything significant. I cry on Limbo's cold stone steps, my pork chop nipples hidden by my t-shirt. Meanwhile, the man who taught me the verb busy and the girl I pretended to fuck can offer me next to no comfort. Yeah. All right, I have 2 more pieces for this section. These are both from the last part of the book, and sort of demonstrate the range of emotions that I was going through in the time that this book kind of covers, verging from the sort of depths of dysphoria to determination to find a future. So we'll start with the first, which is called Snap. Cold creeps in where skin falls through. Trapped nerve white or bone bruise blue. Fingers dead through pleather gloves. Nipples numbed to lover's touch. Toes turn ice cubes inside boots. A surgeon's knife. An ice cream scoop. The chest that will not freeze nor thaw. Insensate pain, the gaping maw. My hands to shake, my purse too light, my air too thin, my lungs too tight. Everything I'll never own lies blinding in the silent snow. And then the burn, the itch, the rub, the twitch and creak of feet and thumbs, sensation like a forest fire. Watch now. Here she comes. Thank you. That poem is in part about having really poor circulation. My hands are so cold all the time. All right. This is going to be my last piece for this section. We had a poem called Lockdown 1, so we're going to end, as the chapbook does, with a poem called Lockdown 2. It's the end of the world, and I want to drink lemonade. My garden is a quarter of the color wheel. A bumblebee decides I am his friend. This out of season summer on the brink of disappearing. I am sick of being cynical. I am tired of being tired. It's the end of the world and I want to kiss with tongue. Tomorrow I might cry or leave this country altogether. Tomorrow they may find a way to conjure some fresh hell. Today the sun is setting and I am eating ice cream. The world is ending slowly. I don't want it to melt. Thank you so much for listening. You have a real treat coming up with Belle's work and Elliot's work. So yeah, I'm gonna go on mute and just listen to Belle.
Oh, well, before you do that, Mikey, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. That was just so beautifully read, and it makes such a difference hearing the writer read their own work from it, just really bring it alive from the page. So thank you so much for doing that so brilliantly. Leia's just popped the links into the chat for those that are already inspired by these fantastic readings and want to check out the chapbook and hopefully buy a copy. We'll post them again at the end. Thank you so much, Mikey. Looking forward to that was the less performance bit. We've got more performance to come, so that's really exciting. I'm going to remove you from spotlight and I'm going to find Belle. Belle, thank you so much for joining us. Let me spotlight you and just give a quick intro if that's okay, but feel free to tell people more about your work. So Belle Caffrey is with us, and Belle is a poet, philosopher-ish and transgender menace from Bristol. She has been published in Olney magazine and runs the poetry Instagram account Translucid Poets with Oak Lawrenson and Alex Bond, who I think I saw in the audience as well. And she posts poems on her own account at Belle Caffrey. So Belle, really looking forward to hearing your work. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mikey, for making me follow that. It's very kind of you. Yeah, I am nowhere near as organized as Mikey. And I've written like 2 poems this year. So we're gonna start with one of those. A content warning for this one, for there's mention of like dead things, maybe what you might call a little bit of body horror, that kind of thing. The first time Susan brought a dead thing to science class claiming to have killed God and to have brought his body for study, it was a scarab beetle. Green like a spaceship, hooked hands, sticky, clingy like friendships with boys who are taller than you, boys like water, boys you could navigate by, boys who were raucous now but later would be silent and would sneak you a handful of silt and precious things, boys like rivers. The second time Susan brought a dead thing to science class claiming to have killed God and to have brought his body to study, it was a mackerel from the Morrison's fish counter, but one which had been away from the Morrison's fish counter for long enough to smell like 3 or 4 glasses of whiskey and the nervous, defensive kind of misogyny. Kind that keeps her eyes off limits later when she is saying to you, yeah, no, it's fine. I don't mind. I can take a joke. The third time Susan brought a dead thing to science class claiming to have killed God and to have brought his body for study, it was a rabbit the scoutmaster had killed for her, decapitated and left with a neck like an unanswerable. Like when he asked you on that hike why you walked like that, and you said I don't know, and in your head you said because I'm not knowable. When Susan did kill God and brought his body to science class for study, it was a man. Sunken-faced, eyelashes you could sing about, bones like concrete, unreinforced. But mostly he was fear. Fetal, curled around where the knife went in, back and shoulders to the world, face aimed at his open stomach, mouth slightly ajar, like how you used to fall asleep. Thank you. First one. I haven't actually decided an order in which to do these, so please bear with me for a second. I think I was going to do... I think I was going to do this one next. You can put a sea sponge through a sieve, and she'll be back again in a few days to ask why you did it. And I'm working on the strength of will to recoalesce like that. In the meantime, though, I'd like to issue an apology to all my teenage unrequited. I'm sorry I accused you of taking me apart at lunchtime and hiding me around the playground. I realized when I found my head in the long jump pit on the lower field that I did that to myself. I'm not naturally compactable. I fall off the vagaries at my edges if I'm not paying attention, but I managed to train my long hands, which should play piano but can't, to squeeze parts of my thighs at least into moments I'm told I wouldn't want to miss. I don't mold myself in the smalls of other girls' backs anymore, but occasionally I'll ask one to ring me out for my birthday, and when we subside together afterwards, I'll let her steady breathing keep me solid till sunrise. Thank you. Which one was I going to do next? Oh yeah, I was going to do one from Mikey and I were both part of, in fact, we've written 2 poetry zines with a few other people based on the work of Taylor Swift, specifically based on her albums Folklore and Evermore. The Evermore one is still yet to be published, just a short 3 years or whatever it is after the album came out. But this is a poem from that, which will hopefully be forthcoming fairly soon because it is pretty much done. But you know how queers are with, timing. So I'm going to do the first one from that. Fuck, squeeze me into something valuable, will you? When I say I want to be held, I mean grip me like you're 1,000 foot tall, you're knee deep in the ocean, I'm the very last thing you own, and some root-footed sea god has demanded you leave me atop the crumbling cliffs as an offering, and he is a fierce god with his hands around your ankles, and I am a piece of sentimental jewelry or a stolen penknife that is pressed into the skin on your palm like a key in clay, so hard as to leave my inverse there for half a year, after you have set me down on the black rocks and told yourself you'll be back for me later. That one is inspired by the Taylor Swift song Willow, which is the first song on that album. And then I think I'll do... let's do this one. They left me then for a while, hardened with pride, homegrown and earthy, sold by my femurs on the black market, kept cold at the ends of someone else inviolate. Not that I was overly attached. I could make do with nothing. Made myself bloody with walking in those years, though. Felt the empty ends twisting themselves together in the strobe lights of those summer warehouses, the air held down heavy with inexpensive cocaine and secrets badly kept. When they came back to me in the holy hours, they had no explanations. I didn't ask. Sewed themselves on. Didn't notice till I felt hers cold against them. Every ache they have now returns me to an old holiday. On the periphery, a venomous fish stabbing me in the heel. There's a few every year, the lifeguard says. Can't unstab me, have to boil it out. Hottest I can stand, the lifeguard says. Leaves me nodding as he pours the kettle over it. Don't remember how it hurt these days. Only the bravery they said I had. Only feeling like everything below the ankle was dead forever. Cue. That one is from the prompt Limbs. It was an escape rope poem. And the first letter of every line in that spells out, the skin on my feet is thick with the soft earth of my childhood. Because I'm just that good. Anyway, so I think I'm going to do one final one quickly, which I think I have memorized, so we will, live and hope. And this one is about my experience in the Boy Scouts. Haha. I don't think I've given it an. Oh yeah, it's called Scouting for Girls. And it goes like this. Oh fuck! I'm gonna need to remind myself of it quickly. There we are. I was inducted in one of the wet years when several of the camps got flooded by the little stream that brought the grey mornings down from the hills to us. And some of the boys got told off for playing rounders with the axe we used to cut off rabbits' feet. I lost my penknife in the grass that year, and when I told one of the older boys that it had been my father's, he asked if it had been my father's before that. I said I don't have that kind of history, but that was a lie. Because on my mother's side, the men were born out of the machines that made guns and Swiss Army knives. When they found mine again, I gave myself a scar with a saw attachment, cutting a stick for a competition, as I sucked the blood from my knuckle, which tasted like bark, when the adults came to tell me that I was smarter than the others. That night, they filled the tent with girls' bodies because they'd been told not to, and that was the game. And they sang about cannibalism into the damp morning, as I crushed myself into the corner of my sleeping mat and took notes on practicing boyhood. Thank you. I think that is it from me, just because it's been a while since I performed. So I hope that wasn't too short, but thank you, everyone.
That was perfect, Belle. Thank you so much. Fantastic readings, and so great to hear your work. You're new to me, so I'm grateful for Mikey to invite you and for more people to hear your work. So if you want to drop your socials or any other links or anything in the chat, feel free to do that so more people can hear about your stuff. And do tell us when that Taylor Swift collaboration is coming out. We would definitely want to hear about that. So that was fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're kind of roughly halfway through. What we're going to do at this point is have a little chat with Mikey. So I've got some questions for Mikey, which I guess came to me from kind of working on editing the book and putting it together. But if anyone else also has some questions they'd like to ask Mikey about the work, then I can't promise we'll get through all of them because we've got another set to get to, and we've also got Elliot. So we want to make sure we have time for that. But if you've got anything, drop them in the chat, and it may be that we can answer them or they'll be answered as we go along. Is that okay, Mikey? That's sort of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fine.
I'm going to spotlight you again. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask, and you already mentioned it a little bit at the start, was about kind of lockdown. And obviously there are references to COVID, the pandemic, sort of subtle ones in this book. And I think that experience of kind of isolation and loneliness, and also that uncertainty and fear and not sure what's going on and wondering what's happening in society, you know, is not just something that a lot of people experienced during the pandemic, but of course it's something that people, particularly in the trans community, experience every day. That sort of sense of isolation and threat, if you like. And I wondered whether that was something that was intentional to sort of bring the two of them together, or that just sort of came out naturally because it was part of the narrative that you're kind of telling.
Yeah, I mean, so the sort of central conflict at the crux of Would You Like to Hold, and what I'd say the book kind of builds out of, was my consultation for top surgery being delayed for a year due to the COVID pandemic. But as I was putting the book together, you know, I was reflecting on the fact that for many years before that, you know, I'd already been subject to these interminably long wait lists, these kind of insufferable it gets better narratives, and the incalculable cruelty of systems that appeared to want me and the people I loved dead. And I think, you know, now I'm coming up 10 years being trans, and I'm still on a waiting list for a consultation to get on a waiting list. It's definitely not just a COVID specific issue. nor is it just a trans-specific issue. It covers a lot of areas of healthcare and disability. And you know, when you're in what I refer to as like the limbo of waiting, you live, I think, in like dreamscape and memory a lot. I especially found that during the pandemic. So it therefore seemed appropriate as I was putting the poems together to kind of juxtapose, for example, a brutal winter of dysphoria in Snap with like the relief of a summer downfall in the immediately following poem, and to sort of jump around like my childhood, my adulthood, my teenage years. And yeah, as I try and make clear in the book, through the more kind of overtly political pieces, while we're kind of sitting in this enforced waiting, the world is finding new ways to threaten us. So for me, the narrative thread through the pieces is the need to kind of break down these cycles of waiting and demand our futures now before they are taken away from us.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you do that incredibly powerfully and you know, successfully in the book. And I think when we were reading it and kind of going through submissions, it was something that kind of you know, kind of stood out kind of quite early on. And I think you really are you really are telling that narrative through the pamphlet. And obviously it's a collection of poems, but also it's very clearly a kind of narrative journey that you take the reader on, and it's sort of quite an emotional journey as well that you take the reader on, which is brilliant. And I think that's one of the things that we were looking for. And also we felt that it's an important voice that and subject that needs to be heard. One of the things you do is you kind of make this decision to kind of have day and night, and then sort of day kind of comes back again, as you just spoke about, the sense of dreams to sort of counteract the sort of daily struggle of trying to get sort of medical support. I mean, was that decision that kind of came at the beginning, or was that, you know, how did you sort of, once you've got this collection of poems, how did you think about putting them together for your submission?
Yeah, so that was definitely something that happened once I had the poems together and was trying to decide how exactly I wanted to tell this story. That day, night, day structure is, you know, reflects that same cycle of waiting that I was talking about, as kind of endless inanity of it, which is then marked by sort of these fierce spikes in emotion, whether it's rage or hope or despair. I found, especially in the latter stages of editing, that first day section kind of more reflects emotions and experiences that I maybe more associate with the first lockdown, just personally, feelings of anger, fear, and kind of attempts at self-control. A lot of it is about how we have to monitor and moderate how we are perceived and how we present our anger and our outrage to others. Then we go into the night section, which I've written like a really wanky sentence here, but like basically it's just, I was back in my childhood home, and which I happen to be in right now for other reasons. I was bored and horny and traumatized, and just thinking a lot about every time in my life I had felt like equally trapped, and just really wanting to be able to touch other people. There's a final piece in that section that I'm going to perform in the next part, which reflects some particularly kind of brutal trauma I was dealing with. And I deliberately chose to put that at the end so that it transitions into the day without really any kind of relief, because there wasn't really any. It was, you go through the day, you go to sleep, you wake up. But as depressing as that sounds, it was really important to me to end the chapbook after it's come to this particularly dark place on a note of hope, because you know, at the end of the day there is a future, and for me, more important, there is a now. And you know, what got, I think, most of us through lockdown or through any miserable time in our life, any period of limbo, is the love and support of the people around us. And I wanted to end on that note that I touch on in lockdown too, which is that sometimes it's okay to just hug your mum and eat an ice cream and not want to die, you know.
Absolutely, and I love that last poem that you just read for us at the end of your first set. You know, that image of eating ice cream at the end of the world. And yeah, I mean, obviously there is trauma in there because you're being true to life and your experiences and experiences of you know, friends and you know, loved ones. But it's also very tender. And I think there's quite a lot of playfulness. And so we've had a few questions in from other people. And the first one we've had in is actually the next question I was going to ask you. So this is from Cherry and Hester, which is about form. And I was going to sort of mention that actually quite a lot of, you're quite playful with form. So there are things on the page that might look like a sort of, you know, standard poem, whatever that means. But you also experiment with, I guess, kind of using punctuation and case and repetition and blackout. And, you know, there's quite a lot of things that are visually quite interesting there. So they're asking, you use a lot of different forms in your poetry. How do you decide what forms you want to explore?
Good question. So I really come at poetry initially from a like performance aspect. Spoken word was how I really got into poetry, and I still draft most of my poems through like saying them out loud and then writing them as a little note in my phone without much punctuation or capitalization. And that's very true of the poems that are in this collection. So what I was trying to do as I was writing them was just make them reflect the experience of them being performed as much as possible. So, for example, using capital letters to highlight kind of where I might be emphasizing a word, be it, you know, because it's someone's name who I care about, or because I'm making fun of it, like in my poem, The Well-Funded Trans Lobby, it needs the capitals. I have been playing with form a lot more in my more recent work, and that's something I'd like to do more in future. Shout out to Dr. Taylor Baez and Sophia Fay, who ran this like form challenge in April, which really opened my eyes to a lot of new forms. But yeah, in this work, I very much just wanted it to feel like you could imagine how it would sound out loud when it was written on the page.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And we had another two questions in, so I want to ask them because I think they're good questions. But if it's okay, we'll keep the answers shortish, just so we've got enough time to hear the rest of your readings. So someone else was asking, Rosie was asking, over what length of time were the poems written, and whether they were written sort of in the emotion of the moment, or kind of more as reflective pieces, sort of looking back on that period.
Good question from my sister. Hello, Rosie. A few of them were written quite a while ago. Most of them were written over kind of the second lockdown period, or at least very edited to like during that period. I often find if something happens to me, especially if it's a big emotional thing, it takes me a while to process it, and poetry is part of the processing. So some of them are looking a lot further back in my life, and some of them were written more towards that time. But I think re-looking at them in the process of putting the book together and then during the editing made them all work together, I think, and made them more to do with the narrative of the book.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you know, you get that as a reader, appreciating you know, there's a lot of that raw emotion there, but it as I said, it does sort of tell that narrative. There is a sort of complete story there. So, you know, I think you've done a great job of reflecting as well, and thinking, how do I shape this as a piece of work? Last question, if that's okay, so then we can kind of hear more of your wonderful work. This is from Zaya. Is there anything you wish your friends had done or told you to comfort you during these awful long waiting periods for gender affirming healthcare? You know, that's more of a personal question rather than one about your poetry, but I don't know if you feel you want to answer that, given
I'm lucky enough to be able
to,
yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to say they said everything that needed to be said. Like, I have wonderful people around me, and it was that, even if they couldn't be there in person, it was every day talking to them that got me through it.
Oh, that's good to hear. And I have to say, I mean, I think that love for and from your friends actually does come across very clearly in Would You Like to Hold? So that's a positive thing to hear, despite the challenges that you've had to live through and still living through. So if that's okay for questions, if people have got other things they want to say, then do put them in the chat, and obviously I will share those with Mikey. But we'd love to hear more of your reading if you're ready now to kind of go straight into second set.
Yes, I just got a thing saying my internet is unstable. Can you hear me okay?
It's all good here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I said I was going to get a bit weird with it in the second section. Hope we're cool with that. I'm aware we're running a little behind time as well. This next section has some content warnings for transphobia, medical neglect, references to suicide, self-harm, and addiction. All right. This first piece is a blackout poem that I wrote, based on some incredibly transphobic guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And I wasn't sure how to like read it out loud because it's a blackout poem. And I contacted a very cool trans noise music artist called Distraxi, and she let me use one of her pieces to kind of fill the gaps of the poem. So I'm going to play that and also have the poem on the screen. Check out her work. It's really cool. It's probably not to everyone's taste, but I really enjoy it. Just as a warning, it's going to get a bit loud and distorted. So if you need to like mute or turn it down, that's absolutely fine. All right, I'm just going to share my screen. All right. Well, hang on. I'm just going to do that again and check that I selected. You can hear me. Sorry. Yes, I need to select share sound. I'm actually not going to be able to hear anything. All right. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to play it. I'm going to put the poem on the screen. Enjoy.
Equality, except relating to trauma, is a proportionate way of achieving lawful limit. This is allowed. Excluding a trans person is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. This is a sufficiently good reason for excluding trans people. Some services are provided to trans people, but this is not a legal requirement. You should be prepared to consider departing.
Thank you. That piece is called Drunken Dysphoria by Distraxi. It's available on her Bandcamp. Yeah, okay. Do I have time to do 2 more poems or should I just do 1? Okay, 2. This next one is a bit of a bummer, but I think it's important. Birmingham's mental health services are awful and actively harmed a lot of people I care about. And I needed to write this piece to address that. So this is called 2019 Was a Long Year and We Are All Out of Hot Water Now. Yeah, so right, Finn. Okay. The temperature dips and my mood takes its cue. Summer is a postcard, burned bitter and blue. It's autumn. It's winter. I falter, I shiver, I walk back and forth from your house to my house, to uni, to A&E, to my house, to your house, and back again, timing my steps to the screech of the train. My housemates hate me. My mum thinks I'm crazy. My tutor says maybe I can't save everyone. I sleep hard. I don't dream, sing the same sad songs on repeat. On good days, you read me your poetry. You fuck me senseless. We leave the blue lights on, cold pizza for breakfast. I don't let my guard down. I know I'll regret it each time I turn back this new mess to contend with. Call the therapist. Beg for your meds. Be dead named. Be neglected. Get down on your knees and be a good girl. Get a taxi to the QE as a last point of call. I'm hiding the knives in the desk drawer. I'm serving you pills before bed. I'm crying in my coat on your cold, cold sofa. I'm scolding in the shower in your cold, cold bathroom. I'm curled up in the dark beneath cold, cold sheets while the voices down the hall keep falling and rising. I'm applying for extensions. I'm lying through a mission. I try not to wish that our friendships were different from my house to your house, to uni, to your house, to your house, to 4 missed calls to where are you? Where are you? Where have you been? You're slurring your words in the waiting room. You're stealing secret sips of my nice gin. You're smoking in the car with the windows down. You're screaming again and again and again. It's autumn. It's winter. I shudder. I quiver. I always knew airing would kill me in the end. Thank you. All right, last one. I'm going to try and end on somewhat of a high note. That last piece is about the fucking worst of looking after yourself nor your mentally ill friends. And this next part's about trying to find the joy in it. I'm going to share my screen again because I've got some more noises. Shout out to Kerry for getting me the Birmingham NHS hold music. You're a real one. Let's go. Wait, am I sharing sound? I think I should be. Let's try it one more time. Let's go. This is called You Are Number in the Queue. In that span of 6 months, when everyone I loved was close to dying, I had the GP's hold line fully memorized. We would sing along to the garbled music, mouth along to pre-recorded patter, any good distraction from the reasons we were ringing. Sometimes you must take your trauma as it forms and mold it into something a little less haunting. Thank you very much. And enjoy Elliot's set.
Oh my word, Mikey, that was that was amazing. I think you might have triggered almost everyone who is listening with that whole music, but that was just ingenious. That was inspired, and such a brilliant performance again. And I feel like we want to need loud round of applause, but it's always a bit weird on Zoom. So you have to feel the love in the room, I think, and all the wonderful comments that people have made. So everyone, thank you again, Mikey. Please go and buy Would You Like to Hold, because it's a brilliant book, and obviously we are excited and honoured to be publishing it. And I've no doubt it's the first of many fantastic works that we'll see from Mikey in the future. So yeah, please get yourself a copy. I'll drop the details in the chat, or Leah will, and tell your friends, share it, because it really needs to be read. I shall go to shut up now because we are getting short on time. But Elliot, I'm really hoping that you don't need to disappear imminently. I'm just going to give a quick hi, Elliot. I'm going to give a quick intro for those of you who don't know Elliot Waloschek. I probably mispronounced that again. I'm sorry. Elliot is an artist, performer, poet, and shapeshifter. His work webs a wet weave mythology of transformation, queerness, and transmasculinity. He was the 2020 Roundhouse Slam champion, an alumnus of Roundhouse Poetry Collective and Apples and Snakes Writing Room. His work has been featured on BBC Radio and published in the Poetry Society and Bath Mag. His debut solo poetry show, Waterlog, recently played at the Roundhouse in the Last Word Festival. Elliot, thank you so much for joining us. I'm absolutely thrilled to hear your set. So take it away.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you to the Full House Literary Mag. Yeah, I'm having such a nice time, like, hearing your words, Mikey, and I'm still reeling from that NHS music a little bit, so taking a moment, but yeah, I just was really admiring and enjoying the way that you were kind of tapping into and activating these raw emotions, kind of on your own terms, and with such a advanced and real palette. If you hear any noise with a dog wandering around, yes, I'll message you with more words because I'm not good at this, but I'm gonna head straight into doing some poems now. And the first one, kind of embracing the weirdness, again, is called A Circle of Trans Men Dancing. What hot geometry is this? this mud play? What geometry of mud? We salamanders, we mud puppies, we muddled men. Our history is between us and clear as mud, full of lurks, full of bogs. You, my brother bog, we siblings of the murk, we water-logged bods, we place touchstones for each other in the spaces we embod. What myth is this? What henge? What treaty? So treacherously soft, this rare mud crack meeting. We mudlark men. We play rough in the rigging. Myth of musk, dance of dredge. We mudlark men. We pick up each other's manhoods from the river's edge. Thank you. For anyone who doesn't know, mudlarking is a thing that people do on the Thames, where they just find random things in the mud. And that's pretty much it. The next poem I'm going to do is called Rough 10-Step Ritual for Transmasculine Utopia. 1. Make a circle out of candles, each candle a syringe. 2. Craft a cauldron out of muscle. 3. Shave a skin fade with a fringe. 4. Grind your favorite growing pains. 5. Season them with sweat. 6. Drop in the Adam's apple, the frozen eggs, the jungle on your legs. 7. Stir it. Stir it with the pull-up bar, the strap-on, or the beer. Stir it with your tongue. Get stuck in like it's your ear. 8. Take your syringe. 9. Draw up 1 milliliter rough boy liquid. And 10. Recite the incantation. I'm gonna come out mud-handled, milk skin of the earth, catch my elbows at the rave, making plot points of my worth. I'm gonna come out hybrid, cyborg, sex and circumstance, a miscalculated alchemy of disembodied chance. I'm gonna come out all through trance, lucent, ported, parent, formed. I'm gonna come out all through man, fluent, distorted, embarrassed, thorned. I told you, call me nettle man, needles up my stem. I'm gonna come out merman, swimming, dickless in the sun. Thank you. I remember what I was going to say, which was, you were talking about how kind of when you're waiting, you resort to, or you naturally find yourself in this world of dreams and mythology. So yeah, I picked on a lot of this, this embodiment and embodiment kind of colliding in your poems in this really fluent way. So that's really cool. This is Stealthing at the Rave. Outside, the gulls are circling our dead names. But down here, in the tunnels, The bricks are slick with pheromones, the drums are dripping clean. He falls like broken sleep, and his body is a wind chime beneath his baggy tee. His movement is the noise wounds make when dressed for dance, and his body is poly, fiberglass. Small glitter sequins stick to his skin like tiny splinter chances. Some cling to his skin as he dances. One sits on the curb of his ear canal and one like an eyelash on his cheek. He is covered in chances as he swims between the stitches of the strobe lights. He does backstroke to a bar stool, elbows on the poolside liquid courage chlorine, and his body opens clumsy portals. Even his piss is pretty, like falling pixels. As he sits in the stall, foot on the door, tinkers his keys, leaves, nods back at a man with a dick in his hand, swims back to the smoke and the beat. Blue flame in the stench, sweat bead. He's Venus as a boy, light-footed, pink pantfoot. He's Venus as a boy. A silver eel through magma, penisless, uncoiling. Thank you. Sometimes when I do those poems next to each other, I realize I end both of them by saying, I have no dick, which is a good way to end things, I think, for people sometimes. Yeah, this next poem I wrote after I got top surgery. A long time I was waiting. And I was kind of always thinking while I was waiting, like, what would this poem I get to write be like after I get surgery? And then like for ages I couldn't write this poem because I was just like kind of living life. I was like, this is kind of annoying, but like but eventually it came out, and this is called Rockstar Poem. I take off my t-shirt, a poem comes with it. My torso is clustered with ribbons of vivid. It's simple, I lived it. The waiting is finished. I take off, I'm soaring. A poem comes with it. I'm gonna do what the hell I want. Forgive every part of myself. Unbuckle my asteroid belt. Ash on my brand new chest. Get the poem soaking wet. Bow to bless galactic bulges and antimatter folds. A freak of nature, living danger, kissing earthbound strangers, making my own font. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna let love topple me when it shoves me, when it bolts me from above. It makes us stand on end. And isn't it a miracle? Every single follicle, I'm gonna do what the hell I want. The clusterfuck shower, the glory of my day to day. There's life in queer space. Everything's awake. Take the hyperspace shuttle, watch spit bubbles bursting on love's stubble, watch busy dreamers kick up comets from the rubble. Sure, struggled, but I don't need to prove that it all comes true. The proof is in my happy trail. The proof is in the puddles. Thank you. I believe it's a full moon right now, and Mercury is in Gatorade. Mercury is in the microwave. Something like that. But I'm feeling it, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna do like a bit of a soothing poem and hopefully send some people to sleep. And it's just kind of is what it is. Where can we read more? My Instagram is at @ElioPoet. And there's some stuff on there. There'll be more stuff soon, like once I get out of the microwave. And yeah, this is called Growing Out. Feel free to like close your eyes or whatever if you want. I'm growing out these nights. These nights come thick, come dripping pitch up on my porch. These nights lay down outside my door. These cauldron nights, they conjure bats, pluck tarmac from the streets. How sweet it is to know the spots to scratch their wings, to feed them scraps of fruit. These oily nights, their sulfur stench, their snarling roots, these open wounds come gather, snarl, gape, bark, back at me, howl, back at me, sing, forth with me, these nights, a choir of ooze, an incessant procession of ants, a steady drip of sap along the wood. These words surround sounds too dense to pronounce, to swallow or spit out. Words turn in the bottomless like muddled mutts. They roam a muteness that needs them from their knots. These poems, at their best, are fireflies. At their worst, mosquitoes. They seek me out, peer at me through the netting, through my thick web of forgetting. I know what they want. With blood, I mean. I have played their gamble once or twice. My feet have been to rolls of dice. I've rolled into these nights, spent skipping to the bone and finding it empty, or rather full of light. Shadows shine in the sponge of a spine. And big centipedes swaying in the breeze, birdsong bulging behind big leaves, heavy breaths of light drooling into the sweaty, breathy swirling of these living nights. A brown horse gallops the opaque ash of tides. These nights are salt caught in its hide. These steady thumps of hooves arrive and run back down the grooves. These nights. Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you very much for having me. Congratulations on chapbook. I can't wait to read it. So yeah.
Elliot, thank you so much. That was awesome reading, and yeah, no, just fantastic to hear your work. I've shared also your YouTube links as a few videos of you reading, which I'm pretty sure people are going to enjoy if they've not heard them before. So we're coming to the end of this night. It's been a really fantastic celebration, and we've heard some amazing work and readings today. So thank you again to Elliot, to Belle, who we heard earlier, and to Mikey May, of course, for 2 amazing sets and this fantastic chapbook. So yeah, again, from Full House, congratulations, Mikey. We're delighted to publish your work, and particularly thrilled that, you know, it's the first of 4 chapbooks that are coming up over the next sort of 6 to 9 months. I might need Leah to tell me when the next one is out. I think sort of autumn-ish time, so keep an eye out for the others. They're all very different, but they're all kind of just fantastic range of work that we kind of really believe in. Leah has very kindly put a bit more details into the chat there for you to kind of keep an eye out. Thank you so much for coming and for supporting. It means such a lot to us. I'm sure it means a huge amount to Mikey. You know, follow the links, follow people's work, support indie writers, and thank you again for coming. I'm going to switch the recording off now, but if people want to kind of stay a little bit and chat to each other, then do feel free to do that for a few minutes before we close the night. But again, thank you so much, Elliot, and to Belle, and to Mikey May. Thank you.
Your call is very important to us. Please hold.